Welcome back. Well, an application by Judge Tintswalo Makhubele to have her testimony before the State Capture Inquiry postponed has been dismissed today. Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo said several witnesses are scheduled to take the stand in the next few weeks, and the Commission is unable to accommodate Makhubeles' request. During this morning's proceedings, she repeatedly claimed she needed to consult with senior counsel, who was not present to represent her. This would have been the second postponement. She's been accused of interfering in litigation between the Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa and the private contractor Sea Rail Solutions.
The Commission is scheduled for a number of witnesses for quite some time, and there are many more people who are supposed to testify. We lost a day on the 24th. We shifted other witnesses for today in order to be able to sit. So I'm going to dismiss the application, but I will give the reasons in due course. The application is dismissed.
Thank you, Chair. Just for clarity, the application that is dismissed is the application for a postponement.
Well, the application for a postponement is dismissed, and I said the issue of whether she has complied, she had good cause to comply with the directive in terms of filing an affidavit by Wednesday last week. That can be decided. I can decide that later on.
Let's get more on that. Now, Mbekezeli Benjamin is Research and Advocacy Officer at the organisation Judges Matter. Mbekezeli, good afternoon to you. Thank you very much indeed for your time today. To have a judge take the stand, having to give testimony under oath, that doesn't send the best message, the best image, the best perception of the judiciary, does it?
Good afternoon, Stephen, and thank you very much for having us. A judge sitting in a commission as a witness is a very serious issue, and it's something that ordinarily would not be happening. But at this moment, what Judge Makhubeles is on the stand for is for events that happened prior to her becoming a judge.
Okay, so you're suggesting that it may not have an impact. I mean, even so, if you're going to ask a question, why is someone who's ended up having to testify at the Zondo Commission been appointed by the Judicial Service Commission?
Yes, absolutely. So that's the issue right now, is her conduct at the commission itself, where she has not acted in a way that one would ordinarily expect a judge to behave, in that there have been several postponements, several back and forth between her and the commission. And that should ideally not be happening. But from where we're sitting, her conduct as an individual judge does not necessarily reflect the image of the judiciary as a whole. There are many issues that the issue that she's currently being called to answer for at the State Capture Commission, as I said, are events that happened prior to her becoming a judge. There are some issues that have that do affect her role as a judge and are currently being considered by the Judicial Conduct Tribunal, and that is something that is still upcoming.
Okay, I mean, when we look at something like this, I mean, we know how, I mean, in our society, the sort of selection of judges at moments has seemed politicized, and at moments it seemed it hasn't. Would you say it's politicized at the moment? I mean, other democracies have the same problem. How to appoint a judge is actually quite a thorny issue. It's actually quite difficult to get right. Do you believe the selection of judges now in South Africa is politicized, or has it actually perhaps become less so recently?
Well, we don't necessarily think it is politicized. Yes, there are a lot of politicians that are involved in the process of appointing a judge, but it is not necessarily politicized, because the way that it happens is that an open call for applications is made, and then interviews are conducted in a public setting, where in the Judicial Service Commission, where half of the commission are politicians, but half of them are lawyers or judges, people who are skilled in the law. And between those two groups, they decide who are the best candidates from the list that has been provided to them. And so it is, in many other democracies, politicians play a more prominent role. If you look at the United States, for example, they play a more prominent role. But in our system, it is a bit of a balance between the politicians who represent the public and lawyers and judges who are skilled professionals who know exactly what is to be expected from a judicial candidate. So ours is less politicized than many.
So Judge Makhubele now will have to answer questions under oath. If you were sitting on the Judicial Service Commission, the Judicial Conduct Committee, would you be watching that closely? And I suppose it gets a bit complicated because normally they rely on complaints, right? So if no one complains, then what do you do?
Well, interestingly enough, in this instance, there has been a complaint that has been filed against Judge Makhubele. It relates to some of the issues that the State Capture Commission is dealing with this morning. If you recall correctly, Judge Makhubele was appointed as a judge from the beginning of January 2018, and many of the events that she's called to answer for at the State Capture Commission actually happened in December of 2017. So the Judicial Service Commission doesn't have jurisdiction necessarily for those issues, but there are some issues that do affect her role as a judge. And those issues are the ones that are subject of the complaint, and those are the issues that the Judicial Conduct Tribunal is dealing with at the moment. So what should be happening is that the Judicial Conduct Tribunal will hear from her side about what the events mean and what exactly happened, and then they'll also hear from the complainants who will put up their own version of what happened. But you're quite correct in saying that if you are a tribunal member, you'd be looking at this quite carefully, but it wouldn't come necessarily from the tribunal. It should either be brought up by her or the complainants who'll speak about what has taken place today and last week at the commission.
Mbekezeli, I mean, you'll know this is happening now at the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture, chaired by the Deputy Judge President Raymond Zondo. We're talking about perception of the judiciary. I'm going to mention the phrase Western Cape, and you'll know where I'm going to go with this. It's a very complex situation now involving the the Judge President there of the Western Cape High Court, Judge Hlophe. At the same time, we've got the situation regarding his deputy, Judge Goliath, and they've lodged complaints against each other. It looks like there's going to be investigation after investigation, allegations of assault involving another judge, 10 judges refusing to sit with that judge because he's changed his version. I would suggest that really does damage the perception of the judiciary to see judges fighting like this.
Well, it is not ideal. That I can honestly say it's not an ideal situation. And what would actually be a more ideal situation is if all the judges actually took leave. At the moment, they shouldn't be sitting on the bench. They should actually take leave until all of these issues are resolved. And that is also something that has been suggested in this case, in the case of Judge Makhubele, that since there is, she is now having to attend to the commission, while at the same time she is sitting on cases. She mentioned earlier in her exchange with Judge Zondo is that she's appearing in a criminal case later this week. And so she didn't want there to be a postponement to later this week. In that kind of situation, a judge should have been able to take leave, and we do hope that some sort of sense will prevail on them, and the highest standard they are held to would sort of make them realize that taking leave is actually the best possible thing that they can do in the circumstances. Obviously, it is not ideal that judges are involved in these kinds of matters where serious allegations are made against them, but the best way forward is for there to be speedy investigations by the Judicial Service Commission, speedy hearings, and in the meantime, judges should take leave of absence.
I mean, it's only a matter of time before a suspect in a case before Judge Makhubele is going to say, I had a flat tire too.
Well, then she would have to put on her cap as a judge and exercise discretion. But it's not something that's also an issue that has been raised quite strongly, is that and I think the chairperson of the commission has raised it, to say, look, if we expect more from her. She is a judge. She is someone who's familiar with the processes. You need to submit your application early. It needs to be considered in enough time, and a decision would then be made at the hearing. But the way that she has gone about things is actually below what would be expected of any other judge, and so that's something that is of concern. But I can't imagine another judge following a similar approach.
I mean, I have to say, Mbekezeli, I mean, if I sort of look at the situation that we're in, okay, we've got the situation regarding judges in the Western Cape, we've got this situation regarding Judge Makhubele, and then coming up in the next little while, I would suggest there are probably going to be quite a few political disputes that unfortunately judges, and we know they don't like to get involved, but judges will have to make decisions, and the Chief Justice's tenure is actually going to come to an end fairly soon. This is going to be a busy space.
Yeah, it absolutely is. The Chief Justice, from our calculations, he's due to retire in the next year. And it's actually, it gives us a moment as a country to think about what we expect from judicial leadership. What should the next Chief Justice, for example, be looking at? These are some of the things that he or she will inherit from the current Chief Justice, and he has to have a clear idea of how to deal with them. And so the next Chief Justice, we as South Africans, we should be thinking about it quite clearly, and perhaps also voicing it out to the President before he makes the decision on who his next Chief Justice pick is. These are some of the things that need someone who's a leader, someone who's an administrator to be able to effectively deal with. And so it's an opportunity for us as South Africans to be thinking about what the next Chief Justice should do, and what characteristics should be important in his appointment.
Mbekezeli Benjamin, or her. We got there at the same time. Thanks very much indeed. All right.